a sharp warning from Washington. At the NATO defense ministers' meet in Brussels, US Secretary of War Pete Hegseth declared America's readiness to impose costs on Russia if Moscow refuses peace.
Now, if this war does not end, if there is no path to peace in the short term, then the United States, along with our allies, will take the steps necessary to impose costs on Russia for its continued aggression. If we must take this step, the U.S. War Department stands ready to do our part in ways that only the United States can do. We remain clear-eyed about the fact that the most effective deterrents to Russian aggression are, number one, a lethal, capable, and European-led NATO, and number two, a combat-credible Ukrainian military able to defend itself and thereby continue to deter Russian aggression along NATO's border. Again,
Hegseth's warning marked a decisive shift away from diplomacy toward deterrence. Under President Donald Trump, Washington's new mantra, peace through strength. The warning coincides with Ukraine's direct push for US Tomahawk missiles. In his nightly address, President Volodymyr Zelensky said his government had completed its homework ahead of his White House meeting with Trump.
We have already prepared our part of the homework before the meeting with President Trump, the military part, and also our economic part. All the details, everything is there. The agenda of our meeting with the President of America is very meaningful, and I thank everyone who helps. This can really bring the end of the war closer. It is the United States that has the ability to have such global influence, and we are doing everything to ensure that others in the world are on the same side with us in this work.
Zelensky's team, already in Washington, is meeting US defense and energy companies to secure new production deals and possibly approval for the Tomahawk cruise missile system. Trump, however, has called the move a new step of aggression, suggesting he may first talk to Russia. But he also warned Moscow last Sunday that if the war doesn't end soon, Tomahawks may fly anyway. In Brussels, NATO allies unveiled fresh contributions to the PURL initiative, the new transatlantic mechanism where Europe finances arms for Ukraine while the US supplies them. Germany and Poland announced expanded commitments, pushing total allied contributions above $2 billion.
a key mechanism to forge peace in Ukraine, as has been mentioned, is NATO's Priority Ukraine Requirements List, or PURL, funding initiative. For those watching and not familiar, PURL is how we supply weapons to Ukraine. Basically, Europe pays, the U.S. provides NATO fields. The best equipment in the world from the United States to Ukraine, paid for by European allies. General Grinkowicz, our Supreme Allied Commander, the right guy at the right time, validates the assistance Ukraine requests through the PURL initiative. And then our team within the War Department assesses those requests. It's a rigorous process and so far has been effective. As a result, NATO allies have committed more than $2 billion in security assistance to Ukraine through the NATO PURL initiative since August.
Germany's defense minister, Boris Pistorius, called PURL a win-win, confirming 17 nations are now part of it, with €3 billion more expected by year-end.
In producing jointly, mutually in Germany, in UK, together with Ukraine defense industry is something we all benefit from. It is about using the experiences and learning from the experience of the Ukrainian armed forces and the Ukrainian defense industry on the battlefield, and all what they do learn there, we can learn by them. So this is just about creating more security for Europe in the years to come. So this is about a real cooperation for the future.
But the United Kingdom's absence from PURL drew pointed questions from the press. When asked if London would join next year, UK Defence Secretary Jonathan Healey stopped short of committing.
PURL is one way of Ukraine's strongest allies helping to meet their military needs. We in the UK are looking hard at the PURL programme. We're looking hard at that with other European nations and nations beyond Europe. But we as a country are spending more on military aid to support Ukraine this year than ever before. We are meeting the requirements that Ukraine has said to us they need, and we, in many cases, are doing things that only the UK is doing and funding.
Britain insists it remains one of Kyiv's strongest backers, yet its reluctance to formally join the EU-led mechanism contrasts with Germany's and Poland's enthusiasm. Behind closed doors, diplomats say London fears Brussels-led funding could limit post-Brexit independence in defence procurement. Kyiv's defence ministry, meanwhile, revealed the math. Ukraine needs $120 billion next year to sustain its war effort and can self-fund only half. The rest, Kyiv says, must come from partners through PURL and frozen Russian assets.
Russia spent for financing of their military goals about $150 billion per year. Economy of war demonstrates if you spend less, you begin to pay by lives and by territories. So you need to hold this balance of economy of war. So as a minimum, we need to spend $120 billion for the 2026. In scope of 12 months, it will mean that this year, for example, we estimate that we will spend $108 billion. And it means that next year, 120, it's a minimum requirement.
With Washington hinting at escalation, Europe racing to fund weapons, and Kyiv pressing for Tomahawks, NATO's war economy appears fully activated. What once began as peace talks now feels like the end of them.